videos you're proud of. Easily trim your video by selecting the words where you want to start and end. Color your presentation with automatic subtitles and highlighting keywords. Add your brand logo. Add music for an emotional touch. Add your contact info on an animated business card on all your videos. Easily replace green screen with an image or a video loop. Stand out with a web page with your logo, your video at the center, and personalized button for visitors to interact. It's one tap to simultaneously upload your videos on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Always know what to say next with the Big View teleprompter.
Hey everybody, welcome to another fantastic, I like to say doggone-tastic Big View learning session. I hope you all are ready to rock and roll. I hope you are ready to learn because we've got a fantastic speaker today. Sharí Alexander is going to be talking to us about how to deliver an influential message that hooks your audience. Let me see who's in the house. Hey, Don Baker, I see you. Randy Cooper, what's happening? Randy from Atlanta, Georgia. I love it. Claire Moore, good to see you. Brenda, the solution or the solutionist. I like that. All right. Kyle, good to see you. I'm so glad that you all are here. My name is Robert Kennedy III. RK3 is what the cool people call me. And we're going to have a great time today. So do me a favor. If I see some of you are already putting your chats in the chat area or your comments in the chat, we're going to be taking some questions as we go through this today. So make sure that you put the letter Q before your comment so that we know that it's a question and we can pop it up on screen. Okay. So if somebody has a question like, what's your name, Robert, just type Q dash what's your name and we'll pop that on screen. We'll pin it so we know. Hey there, Jamie McKinney. Glad that you're here today. All right. So we've got a fantastic format, a fantastic session for you. Shari is going to be sharing her amazing expertise. How many of you have ever gotten on YouTube and you've seen something that just grabbed your attention immediately? How about you've gotten into an article or a blog and you just saw something and it immediately hooked you, right? Because you want to make sure that the information that you share is not just blah, it's not just boring, it's interesting, it gets people's attention, it connects with them. How do you do that? Every single time that you present or you get in front of a group of people or you get in front of your camera to share information with people. Well, Shari's got all of that secret sauce for you today. So let's do this. Let's bring on our secret sauce and our guest for today, Sharí Alexander. Shari, come on up. How you doing?
Well, that is the first time I have been introduced as the secret sauce, and I think I'm going to be keeping it. So thanks for that.
I love it. I love it. Listen, where in the world are you? Where are you located?
I am in the country known as Texas. So I'm in Austin, Texas.
I love it. I love it. And so we've got quite a few people in, oh my gosh, we've got Ray from the Highlands of Scotland. We've got people all across the globe that are on here today. So I am looking forward to what you have. Tell us a little bit about what you're going to be sharing with us today. Give us the quick rundown, the general outline.
Sure. So my job as a communication coach and message strategist is to help entrepreneurs find their influential message. And essentially, as a coach, it's my job to help them get out of their own way, which means there's often a lot of mental roadblocks that entrepreneurs subconsciously put in front of themselves from finding that message that clicks, that pops, that is different, that differentiates themselves from their competition. And so today I'd like to talk about the different ways our audience members can break through their own barriers to more influential communication and establish themselves as thought leaders within their industry.
Wow. So when we talk about barriers, what are some of the barriers that you constantly come across? What are the most frequent barriers?
Yeah. So funny you should ask because this is about the subject of my upcoming book. So we're going to talk about some of those main topics today. And essentially, it boils down to comparisons. So we are comparison making machines. It's a part of our psychology from an evolutionary standpoint that it that we are looking towards other people of how do I stack up? Am I ahead? Am I behind? Am I average? And especially nowadays, ever since the dawn of the internet and especially social media, that means we are making thousands of comparisons a day, sometimes tens of thousands, because we're
Yeah.
scrolling through feeds. And so I'd like to cover at least three of the main comparisons that I think often get in the way the most, and give everybody today some tools to become more conscious of those comparisons, and then how can they flip those comparisons to make them work for you. So I'm a lifelong chronic survivor of comparisonitis. So I think um, being able to so this is a story I often think about is Brene Brown, one of my personal favorites, has a wonderful series on Netflix called Atlas of the Heart. And in the first episode, she says, and we're going to talk about comparisons in episode 3. I literally jumped to episode 3 because I was like, please help me stop making these comparisons. Because
Yeah.
oftentimes I felt like I was on the losing end of my own comparisons. I don't know if that happens to anybody else in the room where they're like, you constantly feel like you're coming up short for some reason, even though you set up the comparison yourself. And so I wanted to learn from Brene, how can we stop comparing? And it was helpful, but also heartbreaking when right away she said, all the evidence shows that you will never stop making comparisons. It's a
Wow.
part of our hardwiring. And so, yeah, I'd like to talk through some of those today so that way everybody can set themselves up for success instead of failure in their minds, and
Mm.
help them break through a lot of those barriers, because that way the message becomes their own and not a diluted version of somebody else's or what they feel like they should be doing all the time. And so we can dive into some of those things.
Fantastic. Listen, I'm excited about this, but before we jump into those things, I want to make sure that everybody knows a little bit about Shari. I'm not going to go through a bio, but I want you to go check her out at elevatedI.com, elevated dash the letter I.com. You can look her up on LinkedIn and you'll find out a lot of what she is doing with regard to thought leadership and communication coaching and that type of work. How you can be a more influential leader through confident communication. I also wanted to share with you, as the host, I've got my website as well. If you want to get in touch with me, go to getintouchwithrk3.com. That's get in touch with rk3.com. I also, if you are a small business owner, entrepreneur, real estate agent, real estate professional, we're going to be running a challenge very soon in the month of February that is really about helping you to boost your visibility and attract your ideal audience using the tool that I love to call video storytelling. And so, actually going to be sharing and talking about this tool, Big View, as a part of that as well. So, if you want to be a part of that challenge, we're going to have 3 days. What are those days? Yeah, February 7th, 8th, and 9th. I had to look over at my wall here to make sure that I got it. February 7th, 8th, and 9th, we're going to be having the Monetize and Sell with Video Storytelling challenge. And so you can go to rk3live.com/video challenge to join up with us for that. Somebody's asking the question, is Big View available in the App Store on Mac yet? Well, we'll come back to that just a little bit later. It's definitely on your phone. You can get it from the App Store for your phone, and it's phenomenal. I was just using it yesterday, and there's a really neat feature with AI being huge these days. There is the magic right feature inside of Big View that is phenomenal. So you definitely want to go check that out and use that. All right, so let's jump in with this whole comparison thing, Shari. Um, Especially in 2023, what do you think? What's the biggest reason that people get involved with that game of comparison?
Well, it's nonstop, right? Especially when you're an entrepreneur and you're looking for ways to pave your own path. You hop online and you look for solutions. You look to individuals that are further ahead of you. And
Yeah.
in the past 10 years or so, people have built thriving businesses telling you what you should be doing in your marketing and sales. They're giving you the exact precise templates that you should be copying and pasting and using for this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
And so it's a difficult battle to fight, when you think about just how think about like all the different things that you see online of what you should be doing in regards to your ideal morning routine, the perfect
Mhm.
split test for X, Y, and Z, optimize your sleep and such, how to be most effective and productive, and it is nonstop. And so some of the things that we talk about in a lot of our influential communication programs start off with comparing your goals, comparing your gurus, and then also comparing your competition. So
Love it.
let's start off with the goals. Um, Oftentimes, so just to give a little bit of framing, all of my clients are niche industry experts who are wanting to scale their knowledge and become a thought leader within their particular industry. And especially my clients are relationship driven people. So they're often selling services of some kind. They're not, very rarely, but more often than not, they're not selling a widget. They're not selling a tool. They're not selling a specific product. They're selling services. So when you're a relationship driven entrepreneur who's selling services, that means that your business is a piece of you, that you're putting yourself out there, that you are in a sales call. A yes is a yes to you, or a no is a no to you. So already we're in a very vulnerable state when it comes to communicating your message. And so, um, when it comes to scaling that message, it feels even more vulnerable. It feels even scarier because now even more people are either saying yes or no. In addition to that, when working with relationship driven entrepreneurs, um, they find it difficult to translate all the cool magic things that they do one on one with people and at events, meaning they are able to connect with the person, they're able to read the room, they're able to adjust. They thrive on the back and forth of a conversation, and they're able to sell themselves because it's a dialogue, because they're, batting the tennis ball back and forth, and that's fun. But when you start to scale up your message, there's no longer that other person or that instant feedback in creating that message strategy. It almost feels like you're talking to a wall. That's why that blank page is just like, I don't know what to say. Even though when I talk to people, I know what my message is about, I'm not able to put it into a format where that person's not right in front of me. And so let's start off with a comparison of goals. That very often you are told, like, oh, you should be achieving XYZ levels, you should be getting X number of likes, you should be getting X number of comments. And that, sometimes when you set that goal, because it's not coming from the inside of you, it's somebody else's goal that somebody told you should be doing, it makes it even more difficult for things to feel aligned. And so when it comes to goals, I really like to make sure, oh, this is a fun one. So from a language standpoint,
Yeah.
when people are nervous about sharing their goals because it feels very personal and it's scary, and it's like, oh, if I tell people my goals, then what if I don't make it happen? What they will do is they will define their goals by what they don't want to have. That they don't want to sound salesy. They don't want to sound like so and so. They don't want it to come across as such and such. When you're scaling your message from being interpersonal to mass scale, that's the first thing that my clients will always say is, well, I just don't want it to be like so and so and such and such. That is a barrier to you communicating authentically and to leverage that influence. So I want everybody to take a moment when you're thinking about your goals online, creating a program, whatever that may be, make sure that you do a don't swap. Whenever you say I don't, write it down on one column and then ask yourself, what's the opposite of that? What is it that you do want? Because we think that if we define something by what we don't want, that's basically the same thing. You know, you infer what I actually do want because I'm telling you what I don't want. No,
Yeah.
the brain doesn't work that way. The other issue with defining things by what you don't want is you're setting the bar very, very low. And now you have an uphill climb to get to what you do want. Where are you setting the bar? If you set it where you actually do want something, let's say you don't necessarily quite get that, but at least you're closer if you hit something a little bit lower. It's you're setting yourself for a much harder battle when you keep defining things by what you don't want. So that's the
Yeah.
first comparison is the goals. I'll pause there and check in on questions and all of that good stuff. Take a look at the screen.
Yeah, yeah. So we've got a lot of questions, and I'm gonna push a couple of these down a little bit. There's some questions about looking in the camera and the lens and those types of things, a little bit
Hmm.
more technical. But I want
Okay.
to, and I'll come back to those. But I really want to get to this. When we started, you talked about comparison happening because of social media and all of the different inputs that we
Mm.
have. So, as a business owner, and I've got all of these different places that I can leverage or can put messages for my brand. How do I know what platform I need to get on in order to really capture the audience that I'm after or that matters?
Yeah, great question. Great question. So this kind of ties into our second comparison is when we're
Mhm.
comparing ourselves to the gurus. And the gurus are the ones that are saying, you have to be on TikTok. You have to be writing blog posts. You have to be doing paid advertising. You have to, you have to, you have to. Okay. So I've been in this business for 16 years now. And I would say in the early days of all of this, the have tos were more or less valid because we only had three-ish options. You were either
Right.
writing a blog post, video was as it is today, and paid advertising was really cheap. Those were the good old days. But now, with the growth of all of these options, I want everybody to understand that there are very few have tos when it comes to creating your message strategy. If you're a good writer, then write. If you're good on camera, then get on camera. Guess what? If you're a good writer, you can still use video by writing your scripts, creating a voiceover and having picture or B-roll overlay. You can have faceless videos and them still be compelling and helpful. There's tons of examples out there. You could create audio messages, get them transcribed, and have subtitles underneath. And now, and that's if you enjoy talking and sharing your voice. If you're good at graphic design, you can create infographics. You can create visual story. Animation is becoming bigger and bigger. There are so few have tos when it comes to your message strategy. And so that then, as a communication coach, this is where I help my clients. It's less and less an outward journey and it's more of an inward journey of figuring out which platform, which media is right for you. So
I
ask
love that.
yourself, what do I enjoy doing? What actually lights me up? Because here's the issue, and I've seen it hundreds of times is when one of my clients gets stuck in the have to, oh, I've got to create it this way, or I should do it this way. They hate the communication process. They hate the message strategy of getting on the algorithm hamster wheel and constantly having to put out content because It's not the content that they enjoy doing. And lo and behold, those message strategies flop because, again, it's business and it's personal. You are the message. And if you don't align with that methodology you're using, it's going to fall flat. So, so one is look inward, ask yourself what brings you joy. And I mean it,
Yeah.
folks. What sparks joy? The second is where is your target audience? How do they enjoy consuming information? And try to align those things as much as possible. And here's one, guys, it's coming out of left field a little bit, but mailer campaigns actually work because nobody's doing them anymore. Putting out a mailer campaign can actually be a really powerful part of your message strategy. For me, I love speaking, not because I like talking at people, but because I love teaching. I love seeing the light spark in people's eyes when they're like, oh, so for me, part of my message strategy all these years has been speaking, and I will never give that up. I love the in-person interaction. But then the message strategy is also having a follow-up process and funnel
Yeah.
once you get that message out there. So starting off with what do you enjoy, and then how are your customers consuming content, and finding those alignments, because otherwise you're going to hate the process. It's going to flop. It's not going to feel good. And you're just going to have to start back at square one anyway.
When you say mailer campaigns, are you talking about going down to the post office and dropping some stuff in the
Snail mail,
box?
baby. All that, the paper stuff. I cannot tell you how. Okay, so I have one client whose clients are medium-sized banks. He sells a
Yeah.
software. We did a single mailer campaign 3 years ago. I worked myself out of a job. It's still working for him. He just sends it
Wow.
out again the next year, and clients still. He said last year they didn't do any marketing because of that. So there's
Wow.
no have tos. It can be print, it can be real life interactions, it can be video, it can be audio, it can be pop. You know all the options. You have all of them at your fingertips. Just choose and what feels right to you, because then it's going to be fun and you're going to bring
Yeah.
your best self to it.
Yeah. What the thing is, when you have so many options, you've got some people who maybe like myself, let's use the really politically correct name for us, multi-potentialites or polymaths or people who have a lot of different interests with so many different choices
Mm.
available to us. How do I know which strategy to choose, what platform, what message to share with people, especially if I'm trying to capture an audience or hook an audience? How do I pick?
Um, so it's a very, very personalized question, because
Yeah.
again, we need to think about you as the individual, your strengths, and also a big thing for a lot of my clients and what I do for them is to protect their bandwidth, because a lot of clients feel like any online activity they do, they have to play the algorithm game. They have to constantly putting out stuff and they burn out really fast, and they're running on a hamster wheel of their own creation. So I really do my best to first ask, what do you want your life to look like? What do you want your days and weeks to look like? Are you wanting to put in a full 40 hours? Are you willing to put in 80 hours? Would you prefer to work 20-hour work weeks? I need to know that, because the message comes from you. And then knowing how much time and effort you're willing to put into your message strategy also determines what tools you're going to use. Are we outsourcing certain things? Are we utilizing AI for certain things? Are what automation tools can help support you? How can we repurpose content you've already used? So, and that's just diving into you as the entrepreneur. The second part, of course, is your specific niche target market. What How are they looking for the information? What's important to them? What sticky problems are they facing that you can provide quick win solutions, and then give them a rabbit hole that they can go down to develop
Yeah.
that relationship with you from a distance. um, so all of those things come into play. I will say, for the Multi-potential, say, what was it again? Tell me.
Multi-potentialites or polymaths.
Multi-potentialites. I love it. And most, charismatic relationship driven people are that because they have so many tools at their disposal. In my experience, the thing that keeps the message strategy from scaling or finally from clicking is because those types, and I consider myself one of them, it's not because you have so many options, it's because you keep jumping from option to option, that you're not sticking with something long enough for it to actually take root. It's like you've done a few things, you've planted the seeds, and the roots are underground, but you can't see them. You can't see what's about to sprout. And so you give up and you move to a totally different field and start planting over there. And then what you planted before now doesn't grow and thrive because you let go of it. So I would say pick something that you can stick to. That the consistency is more important than what is the actual thing that you are picking. Because when you jump from one thing to another, you drop something, you lose the audience, it's not able to grow, and you start all over again. So, and every single expert will tell you this: whether you're blogging, stay consistent; whether you're
Yeah,
podcasting, stay consistent; if you're doing videos, stay consistent. All of those things, consistency is that magic ingredient.
absolutely. So with regard to consistency, the challenge that a lot of people run into is, OMG, I might run out of ideas. How do I find ideas to keep with keep being consistent with, especially if I'm on YouTube, I'm doing videos, I'm doing blogs. That's a big challenge for people. So how do I capture ideas and set myself up to continue to be influential?
Chef's kiss to that question. Perfect. Love it. Let's get into it. So, yes, I understand that concern. I also, okay, there's two parts to that question. I want to start with the algorithmic side. So many people, especially solopreneurs and especially newer, greener entrepreneurs, focus on that front facing part of the message funnel
Yeah.
because that's the part that you're seeing from all the gurus, right? You're seeing the social media posts, you're seeing the YouTubes, you're seeing all the things. And everybody tells you, you got to keep posting, you got to keep posting. I got that. I understand. For me, in my world and my clientele and the types of people I work with, my clients are not nearly as interested in comments and likes as they are money in their bank account. This
Mm.
is my measuring stick for doing a good job. If they get sales, then they could give two flying flips about likes and shares. Now that's my clientele. Now, if you're in the influencer world where YouTube is your job, different thing, different conversation. So again, compare your goals. What's important to you? So I'm coming from the perspective of money in your bank. Okay.
Yeah.
When you have a message strategy that, yes, you have the front facing material, the posts, everything online, you could keep being on that hamster wheel and not get any money in the bank because you don't have anything for your audience to take root in. You don't have the rabbit hole for them to fall down. You don't have the funnel for them to experience you and your content. And that can look like a video course. That could be an automated email sequence. Honestly, folks, it could be as simple as having a very clear sales process of fill out this form, have a conversation, get the gig. It doesn't have to be super complex. But to your question, that's where
Yeah.
a lot of people fail is because they're doing the front facing stuff and they either don't see or understand what happens on the back end to get money in the bank from all of that front facing. So that's part one. Part two, the creative process. This is my favorite. So There's basically a lot when creating a message strategy and working with an entrepreneur who is an expert working on thought leadership techniques. Where they're at in their career is they have spent years, sometimes decades, to develop their expertise. And I want you to envision your own expertise as white light, like a laser of light. It's condensed knowledge. It's potent, it's bright, it's strong. But then when you create a message strategy, what you're needing to do is put that white light through a prism. So that way, on the other end, it breaks out into the full spectrum of colors. That is
Wow.
the difficult part for most experts because they spent so long concentrating and condensing their knowledge to be nuanced and to be thorough that it's difficult to turn that content to slice and dice and chop it up into itty bitty pieces of content. So that's one of the first things to consider is, can it get smaller? Can it get smaller? Can it get smaller? Now, how does white light turn into a spectrum? It's reflected within the prism. It bounces back and forth. So what you need to do is find your reflection. As a
Mhm.
coach, that's my job. I am my client's reflection. It's my job to reflect back to them of, yeah, you're saying that that interests you, but your body language and tone are not showing me that. But when you said this, that lit you up. That excited you. And they go, yeah, you're right. So it can look something like that. Or when I reflect back of, I think I know what you're trying to say here, but it's not quite making sense. Is this what you're trying to get across? How can
Mhm.
we reframe that? And they're like, oh, yes, perfect. That's one version of a reflection. Talking to friends and family, having conversation, and being Sherlock Holmes and paying attention to, when do they light up? When do they get it? When do they
Yeah.
take interest? When do they lean in? Those are ideas for content. Other
Wow.
ones, talking to yourself, getting out some voice memos. I'm a big fan of telegram.org, and
Yeah.
I'll just create voice memos, get it transcribed, highlight it, chop it up, content ideas. So those are types of reflections. Another just honestly, not only business saving but life saving technique that I've been using for years now is morning pages. And morning pages is writing. It's from Julia Cameron, from the book The Artist's Way, great book. And she talks about every morning writing 2 pages, stream of consciousness. Just get it out there. Your ideas, your expertise is bouncing around in this silo of your head. Morning
Yeah.
pages help you get it out. And guys, 80% of the time it's going to be garbage because you're taking out the mental garbage. That's your job. You're cleaning up,
Yeah.
just like you clean up your house, you got to clean up this space every morning. And the beauty of doing that process is you just look at a sentence, you look at a whole paragraph. Sometimes it's a whole page of like, oh, that's great. So those types of practices. Last one is for more visual type of people. One of my clients is very visual oriented.
Mhm.
Mind maps, using mind maps and that's like digital sticky notes where you can see things and move them around and like a detective's board where they're trying to solve the mystery. You can put lines together. That's another
Yeah.
really helpful tool. Canva has a really good new whiteboard app. Miro, Miro, is what I used to use for mind maps. Mind maps are visual. Auditory notes to yourself is auditory. And then morning pages, in my mind, is pretty kinesthetic. So now you
Love it.
have those NLP people out there, neuro linguistic programming. You have visual, auditory, kinesthetic for getting those creative juices going. Then take those ideas, sort them, prioritize them. That's usually where other people drop off, is they forget to kill their darlings. Not all of your
Yeah.
ideas are great ideas, and that's okay, but you want to mine out the good ones.
Love it, love it. And so I think I know you're the expert, but as you talk about putting ideas out there, for those of you that are looking for places to capture those, there are a lot of great tools out there. Trello's a great tool for that. You can even
Mhm.
do that in Asana. One of my favorites is ClickUp. I love ClickUp
I'm
for
such a
all of my
ClickUp
stuff.
fan.
So,
Yes.
yeah. Yeah, so
Yep.
so I want to stop for just a moment here because there are quite a few questions. I want to go back to some of these questions and make sure that we're really addressing some of the things that people are processing in the audience here. So let's see if there is anything that I'd love to grab. Let me not go back too far. Let's start with the question on, can you talk? Regina's asking, can you talk more about examples of hooks? Can you talk about some specific hook examples? We know we can ask questions, use quotes, jokes. Yeah, be careful on the jokes, depending on the use case. But can you talk about some specific hook examples?
Yeah, yeah, great. So when I think of hooks, there's two different types that come to mind. First is your headline, and by headline I mean the title of something or even the subject line of something. So whatever the title is.
Mhm.
Questions are great. Depending on the use case, to going yes or no type of question serve you in one way, and posing it as an open-ended question serves you in a different way. So just be thinking about what is the conversation that you're having with that audience. But other type
Mhm.
of hooks, specifically when it comes to titles, specificity. Specificity is key. Anytime you can add a number to something, that XYZ will save you 7 hours each week, or this will bring in an extra $25 a day, or this will help you get 10 more dates with your wife each year, or whatever it is. Be specific. Excuse me. Another another thing that I see very, very often, especially with niche industry experts, is they
Mhm.
forget to mention their niche target market by name. Another client of mine who works for banks as well, forever. So, like, we started years ago, and I remember when I did a communication audit of the stuff that they put out, I was like, I don't see the word bank like anywhere, especially in the titles. You have to call out your target market by name. Bank, bankers, banking, tellers, specific job titles. So that's an activity everybody can do, is think of all the different ways in which your audience talks about themselves or refers to themselves, and loop those into your content. It's so easy because to forget those little things because you're inside the jar and it's hard to read the label outside the jar. That's one of those
Mhm.
examples of you're just too close to it, which is why you need a reflection of some kind, whether that's somebody on your team, a coach, family friend, a mastermind group, whatever that is. You need people with that outside perspective to go like, I'm not seeing your target market mentioned here anywhere. So specificity. When it comes to hooks, now talking about the actual body of the content, whether that's in script format or article or the beginning of a speech, I work with a lot of my clients on their speeches. Always have. It's a key demographic I work with. Um, the first sentence is key,
Mhm.
and don't make it an overcomplicated sentence. Try to shorten it as much as possible. Keep it short, punchy, straightforward. The shorter it is, the more punch it has, the more people get engaged with it. If you start off something with a, so it was Saturday morning and I was blah 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 blah, da, 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 it's a lot to ramp up to at the beginning. So you want to keep it short and
Yeah.
punchy. Also, storytelling. Storytelling is a uniquely human thing that is wired into all of us. So if
Yeah.
this is an area in which you want to excel, I really recommend studying like script writing for movies and things, um, because they've just got that down to a science. But one technique I love in particular is starting in the middle of the story. So think of
Yeah.
movies. So Think of movies like Casino or something where it opens up and that right when an explosion happens and you're like, "Wait, what's going on? Who and that guy's gone and what?" So start in the middle of the story because it forces your audience to be
Yeah.
actively engaged and they're solving a puzzle in their head that you presented to them. Um, so yeah, starting in the middle of the story, specificity. Guys, don't shy away from emotion. I don't,
Yeah.
my clients are super geeky people that are work in super technical spaces with a lot of regulation and like they are in heady worlds. And by far one of the biggest techniques that creates breakthrough moments for them is when they learn to incorporate emotion into their content, talking about discomfort, talking about fears, talking about desires and wants of their target audience. Going back to the original banking client, one of his breakout moments as well, before we did the mailer campaign, was we created a speech. I think we titled it Hidden Heroes. I can't remember what the subtitle was. It was around the time the movie Hidden Heroes was out. But he works in with bank ops managers. So the
Mhm.
operators behind the bank, behind the scenes, the unsung heroes of the banking world. They don't get the acknowledgement, but nobody was talking about that in the industry. They were just talking technical, regulatory, heady stuff. But once we created this speech to talk about, hey, here's how you can not only make a difference in your bank, but be seen and recognized doing it. And the bank ops people felt seen and recognized by him because he understood their emotional experience with this. I mean,
Yeah.
just level up. Don't be afraid
Yeah.
of emotions.
Yeah, this is amazing stuff. I want to back up and even see if we can get a specific example. So you talked about being punchy with things
Mm,
and really being specific with your questions that you ask. So if I give a scenario, what would you say is a punchy good lead in for that? So the scenario is that I'm a real estate agent and I am trying to connect with first time home buyers in the state of Texas. Okay, just random. Okay, and the market is a little bit high from a financing perspective. Is there a short, punchy hook or headline that I can use that you can come up with to speak to that specific group of people?
yeah.
I'm putting
So
you on
it's
the spot.
interesting. No, it's okay. One of my clients is in real estate. And we just had a conversation yesterday along those lines. Um, so being put on the spot and on the fly, I would workshop this afterwards. But
Yeah.
one of the things that she and I talked about for content that she could create is something like the case for why now is the time to buy. Here's
Mm,
why now is the time to buy. Short and sweet. I'm making this claim. I'm putting this stake in the ground. And then having the content to back it up. If you're in this particular kind of situation, if this is what you're looking for a house purchase, here's also hidden tips and tricks. This could be a whole other thing of like six ways to get a six secret ways to get a lower interest rate today,
mm,
something like that, because that's what's keeping a lot of home buyers from buying right now is the
yeah.
interest rate and also the house prices. So okay, so this is where the brain goes. If I want to talk to first time home buyers, they hear a lot of the fear in the marketplace. So I don't need to make them more afraid. They're afraid enough. I need to make them feel comfortable, confident, knowledgeable. And also for them to like me, to get a sense of, hey, am I fun going? Am I super serious? Whatever you are, the DNA of you.
Yeah.
So then I think of, okay, what are their barriers to buying? What's keeping them from taking the action I want them to take? And it's home prices that they've skyrocketed. So, how can I help them feel more comfortable and confident about home prices? I can give them tools and techniques for negotiating, for bringing down home prices. So, Another piece of content that you could use as a real estate agent is storytelling. Tell them a story. You don't have to disclose super specifics, but tell them a story about a client that you worked with and how you and the process you went through to get the lower price. So home prices, interest rates, where can you find out about where can you get better interest rates? So many people go to banks because those are the people that have the money, right?
Mhm.
A lot of people don't understand brokers and a broker relationship and how to work with a broker, how to talk with a broker, what's important to a broker, those types of things. And so I go through each of those barriers that are keeping clients from going, yeah, I don't wanna, and make the case. You know the case, you're an expert. And assuming that you're an ethical expert that has your client's best interest at heart, that's what I love about thought leadership is you are marketing by educating an industry. You're marketing through education. And to me, I think that that's one of the best things that, the internet brought to us was that we have an informed audience base. And the more they
Yeah.
get the education from you, they're going to buy from you. They will be your client. They're not going to go to some other real estate agent. They're coming to you because they have that relationship. So yeah, is that along the lines of what you were
Yeah,
thinking,
yeah, no,
Robert? Or how can
yeah,
we
it
how
was
can we pull it off?
fantastic. I saw some thank yous in the comments there, so it was fantastic. So let me get one of these other questions here. It says people are so afraid of giving out personal information. How do we encourage them to share that? I'm assuming that's going back to when we were talking about um, lead magnets or having something to give to people. So do you have any tips for um, getting people to give their personal information?
So I feel like the term personal information can be interpreted a few different ways. So I'm under the
Bank
assumption it means
accounts
like
and
sharing their
Social
email
Security.
address. Yeah, right. Credit card numbers and yeah. Um, so when it comes to email addresses, um, I mean, I wish I had a fancier, jazzier way of saying this, but sometimes the lessons are tried and true, and that is to provide value of which that is worthy of the exchange of the email address. Here's something a lot of my clients run into is they're providing too much value. They are wanting to exchange an email address for a book, for an ebook that they wrote, and it's a 12 chapter ebook. Okay, let's understand humans in general. When people buy courses, and I don't know specific statistics on this, but generally speaking, I have heard anywhere from 80% of the people won't even open the course, all the way to like something like 97% don't even finish the course. And I'm talking
Mhm.
about courses that are from $5 to $5,000. The statistics across the board tend to run true. So, when you're talking about exchanging an email address and you think that that email address is going to have them lead to them reading the whole book, that's a big uphill climb. So, remember when we talked
Yeah.
about that condensed white light of expertise and having it to go through the prism to break into the different colors? If you have a bigger piece of content, slice and dice, chop it up, chop, chop,
Love,
chop, 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 until you get it down
love.
to something very specific. Excuse me, getting over a respiratory issue. Until you get it something down to something that's very specific. And I also want you to think about quick wins because when they're giving an email address, they want to open something up, scan it, put it to use, get the win. So
Yeah.
now we're talking about checklists. We're talking about blueprints. We're talking about scripts of mini scripts of things. I am a huge fan. This is something I love doing with my clients is creating a self-diagnostic for their clients or for their target audience.
Mhm.
If you have a map of the terrain of what it is to buy a house, let's say. That's a winding journey your target market is going through, from dealing with loans and banks and credit scores to where do they want to live, to what type of house and how much can they afford, and all of that. A self-diagnostic of some kind is a tool you provide to them for them to go, oh, I'm here on the map. I'm right here. To know where you are in the landscape gives confidence, gives a forward action plan of some kind, and
Yeah.
oftentimes gives the audience a sense of like, oh, hey, I've made a few steps forward. I'm not starting at the very beginning. I'm a little ahead. Okay, cool. So
Yeah.
you can create a visual map. Other options are the result could be in a pyramid of some kind of stacks. It could be like a timeline of some sort. But how can you help your audience identify where they are at in the process?
Yeah.
Now, bonus insight. What do you have to serve that target market at each of those identified points? Are you only working with clients that are in the third tier of the pyramid? Or do you have something to offer for the first, second, third, fourth, fifth tiers? It's up to you and your business model. But when somebody identifies, oh, I'm right here in this map, and that's exactly where you step in and start working with people, what is the sales process and sales funnel you have for them to work with you? It's not just about the front facing material, it's about everything backstage that leads to dollars in your bank account.
Love it. Love it. So we're winding down here. We're getting close to the top of the hour, but I want to ask one more question. You've gone through quite a few different things about how to be influential, how to be consistent, how to show up in front of a camera, how to even send out things using snail mail. A lot of business owners, entrepreneurs, they're freaked out by all of this stuff.
Mm.
What is, can you share with us what you suggest as far as a mindset shift? How do I get in that space to not necessarily not be afraid anymore, but how do I get in that mindset space to just do it?
Mm, mm. Well, there's a few things. One is if you're starting from scratch, it's building a new muscle. It's a
Mhm.
practice. It's a habit. So I would take a look at your content strategy and compare it to habit building techniques. Reading Atomic Habits by James Clear,
Love it.
solid.
Love it.
Um, and so, and also showing up is half of the process. Other books I would recommend in this realm are The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. I know you and I, man. I sensed
Mm.
it from the get. In fact, when I knew you were going to be my host, I was like, oh, I gotta dress up a little bit nicer. I gotta level up. So, The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield teaches you that putting your butt in the seat and showing up
Mm.
is half the battle. And also have a plan. Are you actually putting in your to-do list in your calendar in ClickUp when you are sitting down to do this thing? Do you have a process management plan? When I talk about the hamster wheel that people get on, they are being reactive to the wheel. They're trying to keep up on the wheel. And that means they're being reactive instead of proactive. As a business owner, as an entrepreneur, ultimately your job is to be the process creator. What is the process for your services? And also, what is the process for your marketing? How involved do you want to be in it? What are the steps? And also depends on what resources you have. That's okay. That's still process building. Um, Lastly, I would say choose a sandpit, choose a
Mm.
sandbox. I mean, and what I mean by that is as entrepreneurs, as human beings, we get into a perfectionist mindset, an all or nothing mindset.
Yeah.
And for your communication strategy to feel aligned and to be a piece of you, you can't be a perfectionist. When it comes to this type of stuff of creating content, taking your expertise and creating the rainbow out of it, you are no longer a entrepreneur business owner, you're an artist. You are a creator. You are creating. And every artist needs a sandbox to play, to be messy, to go to stretch out and try things and then bring it back down. Every single artistic process involves going to the extremes and then finding that sweet spot. When it comes to stand-up comedy, saying the crazy outlandish thing that gets people to go, ugh, ugh, and then slowly crafting it in a way to where it gets that laugh.
Yeah.
I mean, you name any artistic form, that's the part of the process. And business owners don't give themselves that grace. They don't give themselves that time to play, to explore. And I really go back to the sandboxes I mentioned before. Morning pages is my personal sandbox. Mind mapping, a sandbox. Audio notes, a sandbox. Planning time for daily, weekly, monthly, depending on what you're working on, and having it in your schedule to be free, to explore. Because if you're starting out the creative process of finding your voice and standing out and being influential, and if you want to know what is influential, novelty, something that stands out and is different. It's novel. It's not like all the other competitors that you're comparing yourself to. You are creating your own field of play. You're creating your game, because that's the beauty of being a thought leader, is this is your field of play. And if you don't give yourself that time to play, you are robbing yourself of that experience. So have a sandbox and schedule time to play in it.
Wow. Wow. This has been fan doggone tastic, man. We could Shari just stay here and have a lot of conversation all day. I feel like we're vibing, and there's just so much stuff that we both are passionate about and we can cover. But some of y'all have to get back to work, to jobs, to businesses that you have to run. And so we've got to sit and wrap here for today. But as they've been saying in the comments, the replays and the recording is available right on the Big View TV channel on YouTube. And you can get in touch with Shari by going to elevated-i.com. You can get in touch with me by going to getintouchwithrk3.com. And do me a favor. If you're here just because you're curious or you're dabbling, you're trying to figure out what the next step is, as Shari alluded to and said earlier, make a choice, make a decision. This company that is giving you this information, this session today, has a phenomenal, fantastic tool that you can use to be cutting edge. As she talked about innovation and influential and being influential, you can use this tool to be influential and innovative in your industry. So you know what? You don't have to figure it all out today. You don't have to know all of it today. Just decide that you're going to take one small step forward using a fantastic tool like this, and decide that you're going to change the life and transform the life of just one person. Start there. Make a difference. I'll see y'all on the next one. Or yeah, somebody else might, but we'll be here. Big View will be here. Thank you all. See you later.
Thank you, everybody.
Storytellers, thanks for joining me on the session. I'm so pumped that we were connected, and I hope you found real value in what was shared. Do me a favor, I want to continue the journey with you. Head on over to RK3 That's Me. That's right, RK3That's.me. On that page, you'll find all of the different places on the interwebs that you can get connected with me. And there are also some great resources for you to download. Download them because they're designed to help you become better